The story goes as follows. An Indian king or maharaja during his visit to London in the 1930s was so angry about a snooty shop assistant at a Rolls Royce dealership who assumed this customer wasn't rich enough to afford such a luxury car that the king bought 10 of them on the spot, had them shipped to India where he then used them to clean streets with. Of course, the media wrote about this and Rolls Royce was terribly embarrassed. The story is so popular there are several pictures that are regularly shared online like this one. This story raises an alarm almost immediately when the event is connected to several kings. When even the internet can't even agree on which person actually plays the main role, you know something is not quite right. Another detail that keeps changing is how many cars in total were bought, 5 or 10, or all the cars in the showroom, or all the cars in the region. Why is there so much unclarity? Let's assume the king in question is the one in the photo above, as he seems to be the most popular candidate. This is Sir Jai Singh Prabhakar, king of the princely state of Alwar, who had been spending a lot of time in Europe after having been exiled from India in 1933. Yes, he was no longer living in India when all this supposedly happened, which makes one wonder why he'd have the cars shipped there and if he still had much to say about in what manner the streets were cleaned there. But yes, he was a real king, and he was in Europe during the 1930s. So far, so good. This is what he looked like during a visit to London in the 1930s. But can you imagine him just wandering into a car dealership without his servants? Does he even look like a commoner? Although a foreign royal in exile, he was still a member of the upper classes. The British had made him a Knight Grand Commander of the Order of the Indian Empire after his services during the First World War. Technically, still it could have happened. Maybe the rich, important ruler did go out in ordinary clothes, and maybe he tried to buy a Rolls Royce. Maybe the shop assistant was rude. But there's no evidence for it ever happening, and Rolls Royces weren't really sold from showrooms. There's no mention of this in any old newspapers anywhere, not till the 1980s when it started appearing in books like Reader's Digest Facts and Fallacies and other publications with fun facts and peculiar stories. But there were no any mention of sources, and that's of course a massive red flag. If it was even a tiny bit true, someone somewhere would have written about it at least a decade earlier. The same goes for any of the other king the story is linked to. So what about the photo, the one of the car? It's totally unrelated. For starters, it's not even a Rolls Royce, but most likely a 1934 Ford Tudor sedan. On top of that, the steering wheel is on the left side, while in Britain and India cars have theirs on the right side. And although this isn't an exact science, the people in the background also don't really match the setting of India. Besides, if you're using regular cars to clean the roads, why not tie brushes along the entire bumper instead of just in front of the wheels? We found the oldest version of the photo on the internet, and it had a big clue written on it, which was in Hebrew and means protecting against nails. In the archives, we found a photo of another car with brushes also covering the tires. This photo was taken in 1936 during the Arab Revolution in Palestine, and the idea was that this technique would help the driver avoid glass, spikes, tacks, and other rubble, which makes a lot more sense than cleaning the streets in India. If the story had been even remotely true, there would have been a trace of it in the newspapers. After all, why would Rolls Royce be that upset if the media completely ignored it? And surely there would have been at least one real photo of these Rolls Royces being used in this manner. So conclusion, there is no evidence whatsoever for any king using any Rolls Royce to clean streets with or collect garbage, and there are no photos of this happening either. So finally, this story is a myth. Hit like and subscribe to become a part of our family. Thanks for watching.